I'm going to get started. I don't want to, I'm going to just get going here. I'm going to start initially with the ability to run AdvisoryWorld reports through Orion Advisor Services. Now, there are a couple of different areas that you would have the ability to call our reports through Orion. You can call our reports through the Advisor link tile, through the Client portal, and through the Report Builder. Where I'll start is within their new Client portal. So if I click on Client portal, I'm going to type in someone. Now, you can launch this on behalf of your clients, or your client can clearly log into this directly. You'll see what loads up here is the client portal, which on the first page is going to have Orion information. So everything that you see here as it's loading up is going to be Orion information, meaning account types, the asset categories, asset classes, management style, and category. And you see that is all listed here. Now, where AdvisoryWorld resides within Orion's client portal is within the Holdings tab. So if I click Holdings, you're going to see here that there's an AdvisoryWorld risk score which is automatically generated based on the holdings within this account. You'll see the separate accounts here on the left. We've got 3 different accounts. It only looks like one of them has holdings in it. But you see that this risk score is based on the holdings within this household. We are using a number of different metrics, you know, whether it's max drawdown, Sortino ratio, batting average, and a number of others to calculate that risk score. Now, we can also, if I click here, generate an AdvisoryWorld fact sheet on any underlying security within that client portal. So if I click on this little PDF page here, or PDF icon, you're going to see that one of our one-page tear sheets generates there directly through. Now, you're going to have a little bit of the fund information up top, trailing performance versus the benchmark for this fund. Each position will be automatically classified for you by Lipper and compared versus its benchmark. As we continue down, we've got, you know, trailing returns, calendar year performance, risk versus return, MPT statistics, including standard deviation, Sharpe ratio, alpha, beta, max drawdown, etc. If you have any questions or you know, would like definitions to those statistics, you can contact us at your convenience. As we continue down, we've got our macro allocation table. Now, this is only on the fund level in this instance. So here we're looking within the fund to give an overall equity, fixed income, and convertible breakdown. We can also run this macro allocation table on the account level, and we'll go through that in a moment. Then you see top 10 sectors, top 10 countries, equity properties, and if there was any fixed income within this fund, we would have fixed income properties and top 10 equity holdings. So this is an individual security fact sheet. These can be generated on mutual funds, ETFs, closed-end funds, separately managed accounts, individual equity positions, even on asset classes. Now we can also run a holding scan report. So if I click holding scan, you're going to see that we can generate a holding scan report on the entire household. So now, rather than just the individual security, we're looking at the household view. This will take just a moment. Okay, so now as we look at this macro allocation table, again, this is on the household view. So now I'm looking within the mutual funds or SMAs or ETFs that this person has to give this overall equity, fixed income, cash, convertible breakdown on the household level now, rather than just on the security level. This pie chart here is breaking down their current allocation on the asset class level. Trailing performance versus that weighted asset class benchmark. Risk versus return. Got a few of those basic MPT statistics here. best and worst case 3-month, 1 and 3-year periods. Equity properties, fixed income properties, 12-month yield, so I'm able to show income being generated on this portfolio. Top 10 sectors, top 10 countries, and now as we get down to top 10 equity holdings, here I'm able to show overlap. So in this instance, there isn't too much overlap within this account, but an example would be where you have ExxonMobil, which is held within these 2 funds, or that State Street is held within these 4 products here, JP Morgan. So there's just a little bit of overlap, but you can see how this could be useful, especially for prospect accounts, which we'll go through later as we run reports directly through our system. So now I will go through the report builder. Now within Orion's report builder, you will have the ability to create your own custom templates. So you can use these templates for quarterly reviews, any sort of client meeting. So if I go to new report, you'll see this little tab here. I can click there. Now under the integrations portion is where you will really have the ability to pick and choose different aspects of this report, or of these reports, to customize your own templates. So let's say that I wanted to combine certain aspects of the reports that we had just gone through with Orion performance reports. Okay, so if I go to AdvisoryWorld Holding Scan and Macro Allocation Table, I have the ability to select AdvisoryWorld's Macro Allocation Table, again providing that look-through analysis. Our asset pie chart, which will break the portfolio down by asset class. Now I want to combine this with AdvisoryWorld's overlap analysis. So by looking at or combining these 3 aspects of AdvisoryWorld reports, I'm really providing those diversification metrics or look-through analysis that you're wanting to use AdvisoryWorld for. Now I want to combine these with Orion's performance reporting. So if I click performance, you see all these different tables. So let's say I want to use account performance, annualized performance chart, performance bar graph, and say performance summary. So now I have combined AdvisoryWorld's diversification metrics with Orion's performance reporting. So this is one example of a template that you can use, which would be completely white labeled for you, that you can generate directly through Orion for any of your clients. Okay, so now that we've looked at what we can do through Orion's client portal, as well as through the report builder, I now want to show what we can do directly within AdvisoryWorld's Scanalytics program. So now if I log in here, okay, so now if I want to pull client data into our system from Orion or from eMoney or Redtail or MoneyGuide Pro or a number of other third-party vendors that you may be working with, I would simply click import. In this case, I would select Orion. Now my account here is not mapped to an Orion rep ID, but you see here in the background where your households will populate. So each of you should have the ability to pull client data to our system from Orion. And I'm sure that if you've worked with it, you've seen how easy that is. And if any of you do have any questions or have had issues importing that data, please contact us or email support@advisoryworld.com. But what I want to look at now is so importing the client data is pretty straightforward. So what I want to do is go through the process of getting a prospect or held away account into our system and then use AdvisoryWorld reports to run that comparative analysis versus a recommended portfolio. Okay? So if I got a new hypothetical, let's say that I'm looking at this person's statement. They've got a few mutual funds, stocks, fixed income. All right. I click find, they all come up very quickly. I click add, and they're in there. So I can name it whatever I'd like. Now the next tab is where I can allocate this portfolio. Okay, now when allocating this portfolio, I've got a couple of different options. I can either go by dollar or share value or as a percentage of portfolio. So here, I'm just going to point and click. And again, if I would have pulled this information into our system from Orion, I'd be able to bypass these steps. Let's see. All right, easy enough. Now, for some reason, this guy had, I don't know, 200 positions in his portfolio. We'd be able to import that from Excel. Now, the time horizon being used for analysis will always default to the longest common time horizon amongst the assets within our portfolio. So in this case, we're going back to 1996. Now, what I have the ability to do here is to specify if I'd like to run analysis over the last 1, 3, 5, if I have enough history, 10 or 15 years, or I can set any custom date from this date until yesterday's close, because all these assets are updated daily within our application. The only assets that are not updated daily are going to be separately managed accounts, which are updated as they're reported, which is typically quarterly, or asset classes, which are updated monthly. Now, the next tab here is where I can put in fees. So here I've got a fee schedule pre-populated, which is showing 25 basis points being charged quarterly, and then I'm waiving all sales charges. Okay. Now, if I wanted to show, let's say I wanted to show this gross fees, I can click Apply Global Settings here. Here I can have multiple fee schedules populated. So if I wanted to show this with no fees, I just click Apply, and whether I've got 500, I can apply them all very quickly. Now this cash flow tab, this is all going to be historical. So this is where I'd have the ability to show dollar cost averaging, or if I wanted to show withdrawal gains from a portfolio for a hypothetical, I could do so. Maybe if I wanted to show somebody the benefits of contributing $12,000 on January 1st versus $1,000 a month, something to that effect. To be totally honest, I don't know how often you would utilize that. So I'm just going to go to reports. So keep in mind, those are not forward-looking cash flows. We do have the ability to put some forward-looking cash flows as part of our Monte Carlo simulation. We can help you through that if you have any questions on that individually. So now what I'd like to go through is our reporting. So we had already generated a number of reports through Orion. So what I want to show you now is how you can generate those reports through our system. Now, as you can imagine, you will have a little bit more flexibility running a report through our system than you would directly through Orion. An example of that would be on our holding scan report, where in Orion, the pie chart is defaulting to breaking down by asset class. Within our system, you've got the flexibility to have that broken down by asset class, actual investment category, or subcategory. Also, benchmarks. I can choose any of these pre-populated benchmarks to compare against our prospect current portfolio. Okay. I can also create my own blended benchmark here without any limitations. So let's say I want to use a 60-40. Now within Orion, we are going to have that weighted asset class benchmark be populated, and that is going to create a best fit benchmark for you on the fly based on the current composition of the portfolio that you're in. And we do have the ability to use that from our generate that in our system as well. All right, so you see the report comes up very quickly. It'll be completely white labeled for you. This instance, I've got a logo of a client of ours who I just ran some reports for earlier. You've got the pie chart broken down by actual investment because that is what we had specified within the parameters. macro allocation table. So similar to what we had just seen through Orion, we are having the ability here to look within the mutual funds or ETFs or separately managed accounts that your clients own to give that overall equity fixed income convertible breakdown. Trailing performance versus that specified benchmark. Risk versus return. We've got a few basic MPT statistics. So everything that we had already seen earlier through Orion is now generated through our system. Overlap analysis. And then we get into disclosure. So what I'd like to go through really quick, actually let me just change out this logo. What I'm going to go through really quick now is really the reason I think that most of you are going to be utilizing our system. And what that is going to be for is going to be for proposal generation, current versus proposed. You will have your models populated within our application, and keep in mind that we can pull model composites into our system from Orion, so that you can compare what your clients or prospects currently have versus your models. And that is what I'll show you right here. So I'm going to show you our allocation analysis. Now you can utilize our CompareScan, our detailed analytics, and allocation analysis for comparison purposes. Each of them you would go through parameters. To select my recommended portfolio, I'm going to click Select from List. Now, anything that you populated underneath the model dashboard would be populated here, so that I can quickly come in and say that, I want to compare this guy's current portfolio versus my growth and income model. So I'd simply sort the objective, and I'm going to go select my model there. Set this status as current, this as proposed. Now, you'll see next to each section there's a checkbox that says Display Section. If I wanted to uncheck this box, I could eliminate an entire section. Or within the section itself, let's just say that I want to compare these on the investment level. So I'm going to show the adjustments that need to be made to get from current to proposed. Then I've got how these reports are displayed. So do I want to show 3D pie? Do I want to adjust the layout to side by side or stacked? It's up to you. One moment, a question had come in. I had somebody ask if the system recognizes an MLP ETF rather than it just being looking at as an equity. We are going to show all of the top holdings within the ETF. It will be classified for you by Lipper. If we have the macro allocation table, so if something does, so if something is, say you're looking at a balanced ETF or mutual fund, it would show that that is 40% equities, 30% fixed income, etc. So it's not just going to look at something as all equity. I hope that answers your question. As I continue down, performance analysis, risk versus return, you see the performance variable. So again, I'm really having the ability here to specify or tailor my report to whoever I'm presenting to. Now, I use this example when I talk to our clients. Personally, I think that if I'm going to be sharing different information or a different report with my client who's a 75-year-old retiree than I would be with the 40-year-old engineer. Maybe with the older client, I just want to have something basic with trailing returns and maybe standard deviation. Whereas that engineer comes in, he wants to see the max drawdown, down market capture, wants to know the alpha being generated on his portfolio. So I do have the ability to demonstrate those things with our reports. But more importantly, I have the ability to just not have one canned version of a report to present to all of my clients. I'm providing a service that's specified to those clients, and the reports that I'm generating for them are going to be completely white labeled with my logo. So I'm not showing them an AdvisoryWorld report or a Morningstar report or something like that. I'm showing them my report. All right, so here is our allocation analysis. Current versus proposed. You see that I'm cutting their risk level in half and I'm getting more return. And then as we go down here, this is showing me here the adjustments that need to be made to get from current to proposed. So I can show them that I'm trying to lower volatility. So I'm limiting equity exposure. So I'm going from 57% to 29% in equities. And then here's the dollar amount. Or that I'm increasing fixed income from 33 to 35, and my alternatives are going up from 9.5 to 25. Now I can also show that I'm getting out of all large cap growth in all my international equities, and now I'm going into large cap value. And you see the individual securities that I'm going into here. I'm going into this separately managed account here. Okay. As we continue down, trailing returns, current versus proposed versus each of those weighted asset class benchmarks. Again, if you were late to the call, those weighted asset class benchmarks are created for you automatically based on the current composition of the portfolio that you're in. Best and worst case, 3-month, 1 and 3 year periods. Risk versus return. You know, here is where you're really getting your message across. So this, you're showing that this is where you are and this is what I'm recommending. Okay? So I think that this is very easy to convey. I think anyone can understand this. I'm getting quite a bit more return. I'm cutting your risk in half. But if you wanted to get a little more granular in your analysis, you'd have the ability to look at Sharpe ratio here and say, I'm getting essentially 3 times the amount of return for the amount of risk I'm taking, going back to 08. Or look at the alpha that I'm generating on this portfolio versus yours. But these days, you know, with the way the market has been, a lot of people are more interested in managing risk than they are in chasing return. So this metric like max drawdown is very helpful in saying, hey, you know, in 2008, when your portfolio crashed to the tune of 32% to the downside, our recommended portfolio never got below 5.5%. Okay? I think that that's a very powerful metric to use there. And then as we continue down, you know, macro allocation tables, we've seen equity properties that we had seen on the reports earlier, but now we are comparing them versus the recommended portfolio as well as the allocation of the S&P. Or fixed income properties, current versus proposed versus the Barclay Ag. 12-month yields showing that I'm generating more income on the portfolio. And then overlap analysis. So, you know, this guy came into your office thinking that he was diversified because he owned, you know, 10 different positions. Well, I'm able to show him here that not only do you own a Microsoft as an individual equity position making up 4.76% of your account, but you also, that Microsoft is also held within First Eagle Global, Growth Fund of America, Capital Income Builder, and Contra Fund. Or that Home Depot is in those 2 positions, or Berkshire Hathaway in those 3. So there's quite a bit of overlap here, and then you'd have the ability to demonstrate that what you're recommending has very little. Okay, so that is pretty much everything that I wanted to show you. I'll open it up now for any questions. So if anyone has any questions, please fire away.
Hey Ed, this is Don here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I'm the one that typed the question. Sorry for my voice. It sounds terrible. So here's my concern. If what I'm hearing from you regarding the MLP ETF is that the system's going to view that simply as an equity. But the reality is MLPs act different than an equity. Is there any way that I can designate or replace a part of the benchmark to accurately reflect how an MLP would be performing compared to a normal equity?
Yeah, are you asking, can we reclassify something for you?
Right. If I wanted, so in the benchmark,
well, give me the MLP ETF. If you want to give me the MLP ETF, we can actually just look at an actual case here.
Yeah, KYN.
No, nothing like just
Oh, no,
look it up.
K is in Kappa.
Oh.
Land. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
So you'll see, if I click that search tab, I can now bring up any fact sheet on any security. So we have this classified, you see we've got it classified by this Lipper MLP pooled fund index, okay?
Right, so it is pulling out as an MLP then. Perfect.
Yep. And then you see here's that macro allocation table. And people wonder what's with this negative position. But the reason why we have this macro allocation table in a table form like that rather than an asset pie chart is so we can demonstrate positions going long or short. So in this case, other is represented by real estate, commodities, things like that. So yes, it is recognized as an MLP.
Now, and I apologize, I came in a little bit late. How do you? I was in a meeting. How do we pull up the benchmark area so I can twiddle around with that?
Well, if within the benchmark area, if you wanted to adjust a benchmark,
yeah,
on a fact sheet, you would simply go to parameters next to the fact sheet reports, and do you see here?
Yeah.
So let's say that I wanted to compare Growth Fund of America, which we know is large cap growth, right? Let's say that I wanted to compare that versus, I can do a 60-40, but I want to compare it, let's say I want to compare it versus EFA. So the program is very flexible, it's very fast, it's very intuitive. And I think it's going to work as a great supplement to what you're doing with Orion. And there we go. So now we've got Growth Fund of America, which is classified as large cap growth, but we're using, in this case, EFA to compare it against, and you see that comparison here.
Got it. Got it. Do you know, can we do this kind of thing within Orion too and tweak the benchmarks?
No, you may need to talk with them, but to my knowledge, no, you need to come inside our system. And, there's a real level of convenience in running our reports through Orion, but as you can imagine, you're going to have a little more flexibility running them through our system. But I would ask them that just to confirm, but I'm pretty sure that you cannot.
All right, I appreciate that.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, I thank you very much.